receiver, as well as the slide deck. This won't be a PDF, it's the actual slide deck because I have a lot of videos and things like that in here just so that you could see what these new features are about. All right, so in this session, this is going to be focused on new updates in our platform for teachers and students. If you have any questions about getting started or how to assign, importing, things like that, that's not what's going to be covered in this webinar. This one is focused on just what is new in our platform for teachers and students. I'm going to talk a little bit about spring. So in March, what it is we launched in the spring. There's a couple of big things that we launched that I want to share. Then we're going to dive into all of the features. There was a large set of features that were released this summer for teachers. So you're probably seeing them right now, but might not be taking full use of all of the neat things that we released for teachers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those. And then, which I'm very excited about, I'm going to give you a sneak peek to what is coming later this fall. So you are the first group to see this information. So very exciting to kind of talk a little bit about. You can see kind of those features right there at the bottom, which I know teachers are very excited about. Pause there for questions on what this webinar is going to be about. All right, I'm going to dive into reports. If you haven't seen this yet, this is on the left-hand panel when you sign into ASSISTments. And what this gives you is an overall view of your class and your students. It saves you a lot of time, particularly teachers who assign a lot, right? Sometimes you're assigning and you're like, okay, where are my students in that assignment? Oh, I don't want to have to go back and click it. Well, now you have a one-stop view when it comes to these assignments. So here, when I click on reports, I can see a class report. And I'm going to go ahead and filter this data really quickly. I will be talking about this in a second. But here, when it loads, I can actually see overall, these are the assignments that I've assigned during that time. And this is how my students have done overall. I can see an individual student's average for those assignments. I can see how they did on each assignment and whether or not they've completed that particular assignment. If I click on the top, it brings me directly to that assignment report. So then I don't have to hunt through all those different assignment links or my assignments to just dive in on where I want to see the student. So that's our class report. We also have student reports. This gives you student level data. It's great to show during maybe report card time or conferences with students. You can show overall where they're at. So here I can show student A what they've completed, what they might need to go find and complete again, the time they typically spend. And of course, if I'm showing this to students, I can always hide certain things. Like I might want to hide the class average or the class time spent, just so when I focus on student A, they know where they are at. And I may or may not choose to compare them to the class. You could also hide in the graph. So I'm very excited about this feature. This is something that has been asked for quite some time. I can see Hannah smiling because she is the one who sort of pushed this feature through so that now teachers have access to this overall view. Just as a note, if you are a teacher who assigns skill builders do not show up on this report. It is really only focused on the assignments that you assign in class that tie to your curriculum or that you've customized. All right. So that's class reports. You get to it by clicking reports, and then you're able to see class averages, any detail down to the student level, and lots of different options to filter and hide different things by dates. Hannah, feel free if you want to ever pop unmute and say anything. Yeah, more than welcome to. So that's kind of the general gist of both the class report and the student report. So that was in the spring. All right, so Here, when you get the slide deck, you'll also see some additional resources linked throughout that you can click on. These are links to our user guides that just provide you a little bit more information about these features. So this one kind of gives you clear insights. You can use it with your parents, administrators, conferences with students. You're not manually importing. We had some teachers who were downloading the assignment report, putting it in sheets, and then trying to do the same thing. No longer needed. And you can identify those quick gaps, especially across assignments for students. This one I'm very excited about, but I actually am not going to be spending a lot of time on this. This is our builder tool. And the reason why I'm not going to spend a lot of time is because we have a webinar dedicated entirely to our builder. So here is a new tool for teachers to be able to create and modify problems when it comes to the assignments in ASSISTments. So your students are still getting immediate feedback, but you can kind of create your own problems. You can edit the ones that we already have in our content library to maybe match specifically for a student that needs an additional differentiation, right? You can build from scratch. If you have something like, oh, I love this test that I created, but I need it to be digital, you can actually create that here in ASSISTments. And it makes it super simple to sort of publish. Like I said, I'm not going to dive into the builder because there's a lot of functionality when it comes to that, but we do have a webinar on October 21st at 7 p.m. It's called Designing Interactive Math Assignments with ASSISTments that you can actually register for. It's this form here that I'm going to go ahead and throw into the chat, and it's that second session on September, where is it? There it is, down here, October 21st, fourth session that you want to go ahead and click on to register for it. If you aren't able to make that time, just like this webinar, if you sign up, you're going to receive a recording at the end. I'm going to pause there for any questions about our spring features. So the ones that are out currently, that were out in March of this past year. Since we are a small group, if you would prefer to unmute instead of type, please feel free to do so since this is such a small group today. Okay. All right. Next is now the summer features. So these were released during the summer so that they're ready for back to school. You've probably noticed quite a few of these in the platform if you used ASSISTments before and have come back to us, but I wanted to highlight a few of them just to kind of show you how you can make the most of these new features. So the first one is answers available in Find and Assign. It used to be that when you were looking at a problem and trying to decide for your students, you would either have to figure out or know the correct answer, maybe even like look at your curriculum to see what the correct answer is, but that's not the case anymore. When you go and look and Find and Assign, it will actually tell you what the correct answer is. So you already know without having to go to another resource if that's a good problem for you to assign to your students, right? And you don't have to sit and do the extra math that I used to have to do when I was trying. I was like, what is that answer to there? Now you can just see it right away and decide whether or not that is the one you want to assign. Next is pinned content. This is where you can actually pin your most used content quickly. It used to be that you'd have to navigate through our content library, find the curriculum, the grade, and then the unit that you wanted to assign. Well, we made it easier by allowing you to pin content. So if you are using content that you're going to just do for this month, right? Well, you can actually pin it so it shows up at the very top and you don't have to navigate through the entire content library to do that. I'm going to show you very quickly how this might look in the platform for you. So under Find and Assign, you can actually see that I already have some pinned content, but let's say I am doing Unit 2. I can actually go through and pin Unit 2, and if I refresh my screen, there it is right here. So now I don't have to go through, or it used to be I'd have to go through here find my grade, find my unit, I can just open it up quickly and say, okay, lesson 2 is the one I'm on. Here's my cooldown. Saves you a bit of time with pinning your content. We've pinned some for you, as you can see here. And anytime you're done, let's say I'm done with unit 2, I want to go in, I can go ahead and unpin it. Now it's no longer in my pinned content. For those of you who've told us your grade level and curriculum, we've gone ahead and pinned it for you. But if you don't like it, just go into our content library, scroll down to that grade level, and see that pin icon is blue. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And now it's no longer visible at the top. So this should streamline a lot of your creation when it comes to your assignments. So I definitely recommend that you pin maybe the unit that you're working on this month, right? So that you have easy access to those assignments.
Carrie, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a limit to how many things I can pin?
There is not a limit. Feel free to pin them all if you'd like. But you probably want to recommend just a few because it can be a lot of visual information, but there is not a limit to what you want to pin. So pin to your heart's desire. Okay, like I said, down at the bottom, when you receive this resource, you will have links to our user guides that will show you more information. I'd love to know where you guys are joining us from. Just which state you're in. Go ahead and add that into the chat because I'd love to know if this next feature is relevant to you or not. At the moment, anyway, it will become more and more relevant soon. But go ahead and put into the chat, what state are you from? Rhode Island and Mississippi. You know, made me think about my abbreviations there. Mississippi. All right. Wow. Iowa. Okay, so these are states that we don't currently have. We have New York and California, but I'm going to show you what this looks like because we are adding additional states. And so when you want to make sure that you are on our newsletter, because as we add additional states, you're going to have this ability as well. And so what I mean by that is all of our content library is tagged to Common Core standards, but what we've added now is for teachers to actually change that to their state standards. So if you teach in New York, right, and you want to look at our content library based on the New York State standards, you can actually change that, and then everything in our content library will no longer be Common Core, but be New York based. That way, when you're searching your New York State standard, you can actually find the content in our library that is focused on the New York State standards. So that visual kind of gives you a quick one, but I'm not going to dive too much into it since we don't quite have Rhode Island, Mississippi, or Iowa yet, but hopefully soon. So stay on our newsletters to kind of hear when we add them. And when we do add them, you can change them in your settings. All right, so like I said, California and New York currently, but we're going to add a lot more. The other thing I wanted to mention is Common Core versus ASSISTments skill. This is a choice for you as a teacher. Currently, you're most likely on the ASSISTments skill. So I'm going to kind of show you what this means. If I go to my name in the upper right-hand corner and select settings, I can go to my preferences here, and this is where I would be able to change to my state standard. Currently, I'm on ASSISTments skill. That is actually the one that we recommend because it's a breakdown of the Common Core skills. So the Common Core standards to skill level. So for example, if you are familiar with the Common Core, sometimes in one standard, they have things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, all in a single standard. What we've done is actually under ASSISTments skill, break that down even more. So you can tell specifically which of the problems are addition, which are the ones that are subtraction, which are the ones that are multiplication. And we do that through numbering at the end, right? A little dash at the end means we've broken up that Common Core standard into a specific skill set. I recommend keeping it in the skills because it's a little easier to find when you need to focus on that specific skill instead of the entire standard. All right. I have two more, but I just wanted to pause there in case there were any additional questions because I gave a lot of information just now. All right, more summer features. You saw me slightly show this one, but essentially now you can actually define school terms. I recommend if you don't have assessments open right now that you go ahead and find a window where you can kind of close Zoom real quick and open up assessments because you probably know your school calendar right now and it is worth setting up once at the beginning of the year and not having to worry about it. And what I mean by this is that in your settings, I'm going to show you in a second, you're able to set up your grading periods so that when you focus on class reports, your student reports, or your assignments, you're able to filter by just that marking period. So if you are assigning a lot of things, right, like especially by like third quarter, you have a huge list of assessments assignments, right? And you just want to focus in on a specific date range, and you don't want to enter in that date range every single time. This is where school terms comes in really helpful. So how we get to school terms is the same place where we actually did our content standards. So your name in the upper right-hand corner, settings, choosing your preferences, and then down at the bottom, you'll see a section called school terms. You can go ahead and add your marking periods, label it whatever you want, quarter, semester, trimester, whatever it is that your marking periods are, and then set the start date and the end date that you want. Let's say that's my marking period. So I can add it. It's been added right here. I can kind of see it on the side. I can add as many as I would like, hit done. And then I'm going to show you why this becomes really helpful. If I'm in my find and assign, you can see I have a lot of assignments, right? And I just want to focus on the ones that maybe I've assigned this trimester. I can just click up here and it will filter it for me based on those dates. So these are the ones I assigned during that section. You'll notice maybe some of these names are familiar because under reports, when I go into my class reports, there's a lot of information here and I can simply change my marking period to focus on the ones that I want to show my students, right? The assignments for this marking period. What are the ones that my class has done? How have they done overall? And I can click straight to my student. It does save it, but if it doesn't, I have the ability to go ahead and go and select it. How did they do during this marking period? What are the assignments they still owe me? Things like that. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to go ahead and set your marking periods if you guys have your class schedule right now. Go ahead and put a little thumbs up in the chat or done once you've got your marking period set. All right, thank you for those of you putting a thumbs up. I'm glad you were able to set your marking periods. Okay, let's continue and helping that streamline. All right, oh, and that was my section for questions. I knew I had one somewhere. Any questions about these features I've shared so far? All right. Next one I'm going to talk about is students being able to edit their open response questions prior to submitting. This was a feature request that we got a lot from teachers. So imagine as a student that you are working on an assignment, right? And then all of a sudden you get your aha moment, right? You work on a multiple choice question, and that multiple choice question actually has something that you, oh, I got this a little mixed up here, actually has helped you kind of figure out what you wanted as your open response answer. And so now you can actually go back and edit that open response answer. It hasn't been something that students have been able to do in the past. So it is something that is new and exciting. I'm going to go ahead and show you this in a report that I have. So here, as a student, oops, this is actually not the one I want to use. Let me find. I'm going to go ahead and use my filters to get to the assignment that I am looking for and preview it as a student. So here, as I'm jumping around, let's say I answer, this has got two parts, right? I answer this question. Right, I submit my answer, I'm able to try again. Now I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't know. I'm not going to come back to this one yet. But then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I am about the answer. Right. I go ahead and save it. Normally that would be done. That's my submission. But if I go back and I'm like, you know what? I need a hint. And I use my hint to help me out. And I'm like, oh, wait, I get this answer now. I'm going to say 3. I can now go back and say, I used the hint and realized, Hopefully as a student, they would finish. And then I could save my answer. But essentially now I can go back and edit those answers. Maybe as I'm working, I decide, oh, you know what? Now I'm ready to take a photo of my work and I want to submit this as part of my evidence and proof. So now I can go back and forth. To help me do that, I have this little bookmark problem icon. So here, as I'm going through, if I don't quite know the answer, I can practice bookmarking an icon to remind myself to come back to that problem later on. So those are great tools to kind of help students navigate the platform a little bit more. Next, if you've been assigning in test mode, you might notice this addition. So students still have their bookmark, which is in our normal student experience, but now as a teacher, if you were to assign an assessment, you can actually allow students to make revisions on a test. It used to be for a test, students got one shot at the answer, right? They enter it in and that is it. But now they can actually resubmit their answer before they turn it in. So in this multiple choice question here, I might enter in an answer, submit it, move on to the next problem. Then as I'm actually doing my thinking, right, I have to write out my answer or I have to do something that then helps me realize, wait a second, that's wrong in that problem. I can actually go back and edit it without penalty before I submit it as my final test, right? I highly, highly recommend, though, you encourage students to actually finish the entire test and hit that finish button so that their responses are tracked for you. Because essentially, as long as they have the ability to edit, you want to make sure they turn in that assignment or turn in that test paper. Questions about our revisions for students. So allowing them to change their open response questions in our typical experience. And then in test mode, being able to revise all of their answers. So even the ones that are immediately graded for students. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there, so, is there a way I can, let's say I don't want them to be able to revise their open response? Is there a way to change that?
Yes, open response is if you don't want them to revise their open response, you're going to actually change your assigned time order from student choice to linear. Right now it's defaulted in student choice, which is our preferred experience for students, right? Because it allows students to jump around to different problems. But if you change it to linear, which means that a student has to complete the problem before moving on to the next problem, that will allow them to sort of be able to not revise their open responses. All right. Trying to find a quick skill builder too, so that I can talk about the next section. All right, so skill builders. We've made this way more fun for teachers. If you're not familiar with our skill builders are in-house content that we've created here at ASSISTments. And you can find them where they basically are a bunch of different problems around that specific skill, right? And so it's a lot of problems on one skill, and students will receive them in random order. So then they're going to try that skill builder to just as mastery practice. If students get 3 correct in a row, they've mastered that skill builder, right? And so they get lots of different problems, and we wanted to increase motivation here when it came to our skill builders. So now as students are completing the problem, right, 3 correct in a row on their first try, they're still getting immediate feedback on the skill builder, but now when they get it correct, they can see a little star fill up in the corner to encourage them to keep going and try and get to those 3 correct in a row, right? If they get one incorrect though, the stars just explode and they start again, right, to try and get to that 3 filled stars. And if they do get to the 3 filled stars, they're actually going to see a really cute celebratory message at the end. This is just increasing their engagement when it comes to instant feedback and practice that comes along with our skill builders. So I'm going to quickly show you where skill builders are in case you're not familiar with this content, so that you can assign it. So here under Find and Assign, if you wanted to pin a specific folder here, you can as well, but we have all our skill builders, again, created by our internal team here in different grade levels. If I teach grade level 7, ratio and proportions is a huge one when it comes to grade 7 content. So I can scroll through here and select, oh, I want to make sure that they're practicing identifying the constant of proportionality in different realms. Okay, great. I'm taking a look at this. I love it. I'm going to assign it, and students are going to get it in random order and then be able to kind of fill it out as they go. So here I'm going to go ahead and preview as a student so you can see this specifically. 3 in a row correct on the first try. If I answer this one incorrectly, I don't know the answer. So I'm not going to do the math real quick, but if I had this correct, you would see the star fill up as I went and got them correct. Again, I can keep going. I can have my hints and my help and show answer as well if I need it. And then here is my answer. So I don't get any stars because I didn't get it correct on the first try, but I can use that information to help me here. And that's 10. Submit. And then there goes my star. And then once I got 3 correct in a row, I'll be able to pass. I'm going to pause there for any additional questions when it comes to some of the content that I've covered so far. The next one is really cool for anyone who is creating their own content. So maybe you are using our mix and match to customize a problem set, or you're going to come to our builder and start to build content of your own. If that's the case, sometimes you actually want to share that information with your colleague. And there is a way to do that now here in ASSISTments, where you can actually put everything you have created into a folder. And if you do put it into a folder, you can share it with specific people's email, right? So here's an email that I'm sharing with here. And when they go into their account, they'll see a section called Share With Me and actually have a folder in it. Most of you may have this folder as empty currently, but as soon as you start maybe creating your own content and things like that and sharing it with colleagues, they'll start to see that Shared With Me folder filled up, and maybe they're creating stuff to share with you, and you will start to see that Shared With Me folder filled up. That's a special one to kind of just use if you are using some of our more advanced features in ASSISTments and then wanting to share content. So right now, this one does not have any content shared with them, but if Hannah, for example, wanted to share content with me, she would go ahead and write my email into that folder that she's got here. And then I would start to see it on my end in the Shared With Me section. And then you can always add or remove people depending on what the content is that you want to share. All right. I know I paused for questions a couple different times, but I want to do one more time. It's a lot of information. Like I said, our product team has been super duper busy shipping out all of these new resources for you to really help you get ready for this next school year. Oops, and I'm not sharing my screen. Here we go. Okay. All right, here's my favorite part. We're gonna get a sneak peek to what is coming this fall. So late this fall, these are the features you're gonna be seeing. This is just a sneak peek. It is not all of the features. Like you saw just now with our summer release, our product team ships a lot of features to teachers, right? It's a lot of different things that come out that are really exciting. I'm just going to give you a little sneak peek to what is coming later this fall. Make sure you are on our newsletters and getting emails from ASSISTments, because this is where you're going to hear about these additional features, right? Not just these three, right? You'll also get note the exact date these three come out, and you will start to see them in ASSISTments, right? If you are on that newsletter. And then you'll hear all about the additional things that are coming out as well. But here's a little sneak peek to what is coming out. Currently, this is what our platform looks like. You can see here that I would have to click on My Assignments. And then if I have multiple classes, I actually have to filter through those different classes to see my assignments. Same with the reports, right? And so I'm going to kind of show you what this looks like right now in terms of my typical teacher workflow. So here, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of these. If I'm in my assignments and I actually want to look at things specifically for one of my classes, I'd have to then filter by that class, and then I can add my school terms, etc. But it's all here under my assignments. Same with reports. I have to actually choose my class, and then I can dive into my reports. We're streamlining that entirely for teachers with a brand new landing page that brings you directly to your courses first. It's a nice, smooth experience. I'm going to kind of show you what this looks like live so that you can see. Oops, apologies. Give me 1 second to pull this up. Okay, hang on. Technical difficulties, apologies. I think I was trying to hide this and hit it too much. Okay, here we go. So here is what it looks like. When I click, I can see this class has 17 students. This one has 10. Here's actually where you would find our find and assign. So this mirrors the content library that you are used to, but where you're brought first is your courses, where here you can then click to see your assignments. And your assignments are listed like this in a nice one where you can actually see all the assignments and lots of different symbols here to kind of help you with like assignment type. So you can see here, I can see which ones I've assigned with time limits, which ones are test mode, redo, and which ones are particularly skill builders. So I can filter by that particular assignment to see, okay, I signed a bunch of skill builders. I want to see how many of my students have completed that skill builder. Did I set a due date for them? When did I actually assign it? Same as anything, for example, if you are assigning assessments like tests in test mode and you kind of want to see where students are in that progress, you can quickly filter and do that. You still have your terms. So here under my terms, I can filter based on the ones that I like, right? And so these are all of those assignments that I really want to focus on during this quarter or this term. You'll notice the second time, I'm going to go back to my courses here so I can show you how to get there. But this tab brings you directly to the reports page where you can see the class level reports, and then you can quickly filter down to student level reports if you'd like. Setting my terms here like I have, and then now I can quickly see where students are, and I can see my overall class report as well. So this is what's coming up. It's just kind of a new flow to make things a little smoother for you.
And before we leave, if you go back to the assignments list and then hover over the submissions. So if you want to see how many students have not completed it, then you will see all of their names. So if you choose one, yeah, like that one, you can quickly kind of verify which students have not completed that assignment.
What? This is why we have Hannah here. She knows all the secret tricks. That was cool. I'm sure you guys love that one. You can quickly pinpoint, hey, wait a second. Who am I missing? Okay, let me go talk to student O, M, K, and Z. Okay. I love that little trick. Look at that, guys. You learned something I didn't even know. Thank goodness Hannah was here. You never would have learned it. Well, you would have learned it when it was released, but you wouldn't have learned it today. All right. So the next one I'm very, very excited about. This has been a feature that teachers have asked us for a while, and now we're going to be able to deliver it in platform. So teachers have asked us, especially with students who might have reading struggles or English language learners that just need a little extra reading help, right? It used to be on ASSISTments that you needed a third-party app, right? Like a screen reader on Chrome in order for it to read. Well, not anymore, actually. When your students enter in during our late fall release into ASSISTments, they will actually have a read aloud function where they can essentially
Nessa tells her brother that 1 kilogram of rice weighs the same as 10 bags containing 100 grams of beans each. Do you agree with her? Yes, no.
So it reads the answers for you. And again, you have lots of settings here, right? Students will probably love to play with this, but you can actually change who's talking to you and change the speed a little bit. If it's a little bit too fast, right? You could slow it down.
Nessa tells her brother that 1 kilogram of rice weighs the same as 10 bags containing 100 grams of beans each. Do you agree with her? Yes, no.
So that'll really help students when it comes to read aloud. Yes, question.
Yeah, that actually reminded me. Do you have where do you show assessments in different languages? Like if I wanted a Spanish language problem set, how do I do that?
Yeah, under find and assign. So if you have a Spanish problem set, Thais, will you get our Spanish resource and put it into the chat real quick? There's certain content that does have Spanish. And so if you look here, I believe Unit 6 is one, you can see the assessments in English as well as the assessments in Spanish. So this is kind of where that location is. And then in our cool down sections for if we have the Spanish content, you'll see the cool downs as well as the Spanish cool downs. Spanish is the only language that we add in app, but we do work with things like Google Translate. So like students could have Google Translate on their Chrome browser and be able to translate it into a different language, but embedded in our platform is Spanish at the moment.
Okay, so for the tutor on the tutor side, if you're assigning like problem sets, from the master tutor roadmap. Is there a way to get those in Spanish language?
That is part of a different program, and I think it would be great if you wanted to reach out to your program leads, which is Denise and Sandy. And I can, if you wanted to email contact at ASSISTments, that particular question, they'd be able to help you out. So there, I think if I understand the tutor correctly, and again, that's not my area of expertise, it's a different program. They link you directly to maybe like the cool down itself. So then they would be able to kind of find you a different link for the Spanish versions of those cool downs. But I think it's best if you wanted to email us at contact, we can get you in touch with the program leads there to answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So that is Read Aloud, which is pretty exciting, and it is coming again late fall. So make sure you are on the newsletters that we send out so you know when this is coming, or join our Facebook group. These are things that we're going to talk about because all of these announcements are going to show up there. But that's Read Aloud. And the next one is a sneak peek at our input calculator. This is going to make things so much smoother for students. If you've been using ASSISTments for a while, you know there's a couple of things with ASSISTments that you're like, I really wish it was easier for my students to link, right? In this case, a mixed fraction response, right? In ASSISTments for a mixed fraction, you put the whole number, you hit the space, and then you do the fraction, right? And the fraction has to be in a slash, right? So in this case here, we are changing that with the addition of an input calculator, where this allows students to actually choose an option, and then they can type in that answer. So here is an example of what this looks like. So here it is currently. This is, I'll use the one I just used an example. Currently, you'd have to do 3 space and then the fraction. But moving forward, you can just go ahead and delete this so I can show you. Simply put, this one where I'm like, hey, I want to enter in a mixed fraction. I can type in my number. And now it looks much more clean for students. This one's my favorite. If you happen to teach middle school, you know this one's a big one when it comes to exponents. You'd have this little message that's like, don't forget to put the caret, right? Where you'd have your students would put the answer, caret, and then the number to be accepted as correct, right? When it doesn't match the exponents, they're like, okay, I got to do this caret. I keep forgetting about the caret. Now with the input calculator, they can just choose that, hey, I need the exponent form, and then they'll be able to do it in ASSISTments itself, which is really nice for this content. But that's what's coming out this fall, late fall. Any questions about the sneak peek that I gave you, those small 3 things that are coming out? All right, now don't worry, there is a lot more than those 3. So like I said, make sure you're joining us in our Facebook groups, our newsletters, etc. Now, this is one of the first times we've done a What's New webinar, and I'd love to get your feedback on the session itself. Was it helpful to sort of learn what is currently in the platform that you might be underutilizing, as well as getting a sneak peek at what is coming out? So if you could fill out that survey for me, I would really appreciate it. It should only take a couple of minutes, but it's our What's New fall features to power up your teaching. And then, like I said earlier, being on our newsletter, things like that, you will get this recording at the end of this webinar. And so you'll get the recording as well as a slide deck so that you can actually see all the videos that I showed and then have direct links to all the user guides I mentioned. So things like pinned content, our state standards, school terms, sharing content, our skill builders. All of these resources are on our website under user guides, as well as linked in the slide deck. And so in the slide deck, this is kind of where you might find our user guides on the website. So if you're on our website, you just click user guides there, and then you'll see pretty much everything that I've linked here. So right here under our user guides, you can see all of the different things that we have. So if you're interested in exploring customized assignments like mixing and matching, or you want to get a taste of our builder before our builder webinar, you can access them here, right? Things like pinned content, all of that, and definitely utilize these little quick links on the side to help you bring you to the exact information that you are looking for. So those are our user guides. Thank you, Thais, for throwing those links in there. You also have the ability to look at our Teacher Academy. That is our self-serve video library modules of different things. And then, like I said, you can click here for events. That's most likely how you signed up for this particular event, but you can click there to sign up for our builder webinar or any of our teacher panels that we have coming up later this fall. And then joining our teacher Facebook community. I highly recommend this. Thais has been really good about sharing information there in that Facebook group and connecting with our teachers. This is where you're like, hey, I have a question about this. Ask our community, right? They might have little tips and tricks, and sometimes we throw in fun things as well. So I highly, highly recommend joining our teacher Facebook community. All right. I believe that is the end of this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Oops. Did it stop? No, there, we try again. All right.